The sound of dripping water echoed through the maintenance tunnel beneath Meridian 7 station. Ryan Hollis lay on his back, wrench in hand, fixing a coolant pipe that nobody else wanted to deal with. His coveralls were stained with grease, and his hair stuck to his forehead from the heat. This was exactly what he wanted. Boring, quiet, safe. 3 years ago, he had walked away from a life that left scars nobody could see. Now he fixed broken things instead of breaking things himself. It was better this way. The pipe sealed with a hiss. Ryan slid out from under it and wiped his hands on a rag that was already filthy. Above him, through the metal grating of the tunnel floor, he could hear children laughing. The sound made him pause. That was why he stayed here. That laughter meant they were safe, happy, unaware of how dark the galaxy could be. Ryan gathered his tools and climbed the ladder back to the main level. The Stellar Youth Academy was home to almost 300 students from dozens of different species. They came here to learn, to make friends across species lines, to build a future where everyone got along. It was a nice dream. Ryan hoped it would last. He walked through the corridors with his toolbox, invisible as always. Students rushed past him without a second glance. Teachers nodded politely, but never stopped to chat. He was just the maintenance guy, the human who kept the lights on and the air flowing. That was fine with him. A small shape crashed into his leg. Ryan looked down to find Pip, a Rothian child barely 3 feet tall with large eyes and soft gray fur. She looked up at him with a gap-toothed smile. "Mr. Ryan, you fixed my music box." She held up a small device that played gentle melodies. Ryan had found it in the lost and found last week, broken and forgotten. He had spent an evening repairing the tiny mechanism inside because he knew how much these things meant to kids. "Works better now," he said simply. Pip hugged his leg and ran off, the music box playing a cheerful tune. Ryan watched her go, then continued his rounds. In the security office, Chief Torrens was reviewing patrol schedules. The Valkyrie officer looked up when Ryan entered. "Hollis, what brings you to my domain?" "Sensor array in Section 7 needs recalibration. Noticed some odd readings during my check." Torrens pulled up the data on his screen and frowned. "Looks normal to me. Probably just merchant traffic passing through." "Maybe," Ryan said. But his instincts said otherwise. Years of training had taught him to trust those instincts. "You worry too much," Torrens said with a laugh. "This is a school. We're protected by neutrality treaties. Nobody attacks educational facilities." Ryan did not argue. He had learned that people believed what they wanted to believe. Instead, he left the office and made his way to the observation deck. The view was stunning. Stars scattered across the darkness of space like diamonds on black silk. The station floated in neutral territory, far from any military conflicts or political disputes. It was supposed to be the safest place in the sector. Ryan pulled up the sensor data on a nearby console. The reading still bothered him. Ships had been passing through the area more frequently over the past week. Their paths seemed random, but Ryan had spent years identifying patterns. These ships were scouting. He was sure of it. He filed another report with station security. They would probably ignore it again. Headmaster Brinal found him an hour later in the lower engineering bay. The Cawthon administrator was tall and thin with elegant features and a calm voice. "Ryan, I heard you have concerns about station security. Just noticed unusual traffic patterns, might be nothing. Chief Torrens assures me everything is fine. We have protocols in place." Ryan nodded. Protocols written by people who had never faced real violence. He had tried to explain the weaknesses in their security, but nobody wanted to hear that they might be vulnerable. "I trust you will continue to keep our systems running smoothly," Brinal said with a warm smile. "The children rely on you." After the headmaster left, Ryan stood alone in the engineering bay. The massive engines hummed around him, pushing power through the station. He knew every system, every backup, every hidden feature that the original military designers had built into this platform before it became a school. His communicator beeped. Another repair request, this time in the residential wing. A broken door that would not close properly. Ryan picked up his toolbox and headed that way. As he walked, He passed classrooms where students learned mathematics and history. He passed the cafeteria where different species shared meals and stories. He passed the recreation area where children played games that mixed traditions from a dozen worlds. This place was special. It represented something good in a galaxy that often forgot how to be good. That evening, Ryan sat in his small quarters and stared at the wall. Old habits pulled at him. He checked the security feeds, noting patrol patterns and response times. He reviewed the station layout for the 1,000th time, identifying choke points and defensible positions. He inventoried the emergency lockers scattered throughout the facility. Nobody knew he did this. Nobody knew he still carried the training that had once made him very dangerous. His terminal chimed with a message from the maintenance schedule. Tomorrow would be another day of fixing pipes and calibrating systems. Another day of being invisible. Ryan allowed himself a small smile. Invisible was good. Invisible meant peace. Outside his window, stars burned in the eternal night. Far beyond the station, ships moved through the darkness with purposes unknown. Ryan watched them for a long time before finally turning off the lights and trying to sleep. His dreams were never peaceful, but at least here, surrounded by laughter and learning, he could pretend they were. Alarms shattered the morning silence like breaking glass. Ryan dropped the circuit board he was installing and immediately checked his wrist display. Multiple breach warnings, hull integrity compromised in 3 sections, communication jamming detected across all frequencies. This was not a drill. He ran toward the nearest security station, his mind already shifting into patterns he had hoped never to use again. Around him, students looked confused. Teachers tried to maintain calm, but fear was spreading through the corridors like wildfire. The security monitors showed ships surrounding the station. Big ones, heavily armed, bearing the marks of the Kresh Syndicate. Raiders, slavers, the kind of people who saw children as profit. All personnel. This is Headmaster Brinall. The announcement echoed through the station with forced calm. Please proceed to assembly areas in an orderly fashion. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Ryan's jaw tightened. Assembly areas would make it easier for the raiders to gather hostages. Chief Torrens burst into the security station, his face pale. Hollis, what are you doing here? Working. What's the situation? Kresh ships. At least 6 of them. They jammed us before we could send a distress call. Torrens pulled up tactical displays with shaking hands. They're demanding we surrender for processing. Processing means ransom at best, slavery at worst, Ryan said flatly. The first explosion rocked the station. Students screamed. Ryan grabbed the console to steady himself. They're breaching the docking ports, Torrens said. I have 20 security officers. We're teachers with stun weapons, not soldiers. Ryan was already moving to the weapons locker. His fingers entered an override code that should not have existed. The locker opened, revealing equipment that was definitely not standard for a school. Hollis, how did you get your people positioned at key corridors? Slow them down. Protect the students. Ryan pulled out a tactical vest and a weapon that looked far too familiar in his hands. What are you going to do? What I'm good at. Ryan disappeared into the maintenance passages before Torrens could respond. The tunnels and shafts that ran through the station were his territory. He had mapped every inch during his 3 years here. Now that knowledge would serve a different purpose. Through the walls, he heard boots, heavy, confident. The raiders were moving fast, expecting no resistance. Ryan reached an access panel and carefully removed it. Below him, 3 Kresh soldiers walked through the corridor, weapons ready, talking in their harsh language about how easy this would be. He dropped behind them in absolute silence. 3 quick movements, 3 bodies on the floor. Ryan dragged them into a storage room and sealed the door. His communicator chirped. He had patched into the security network. Section 4 breached. They're herding students toward the assembly hall. Ryan's hands moved across a control panel, accessing systems most people did not know existed. This station had been a military outpost once, decades ago. The bones of that past were still here, buried beneath layers of peaceful renovation. He sealed sections, cutting off raider access to certain areas. He rerouted power, preparing systems he might need. All the while he moved through the passages like a ghost. Another patrol. 5 soldiers this time, checking classrooms. Ryan watched them through a ventilation grate, counting weapons, noting armor weak points, calculating angles. When they split up to search faster, he struck. The first soldier never saw him coming. The second turned just in time to register shock before darkness took him. The others heard the commotion and spun around, but Ryan was already gone, melted back into the walls. "Command, we have a problem," one soldier spoke into his comm. "Something's picking us off." The response crackled back in Kresh language. Ryan understood every word. His past had required him to know many languages. It's just station security. Find them and eliminate them. Ryan allowed himself a cold smile. They thought they were hunting security. They had no idea. He found a group of students trapped in a science lab. 6 children of various species huddled together in terror, while 2 raiders tried to force the door open. Ryan appeared behind the raiders like a nightmare. They went down hard and fast. He opened the door and found the students staring at him with wide eyes. A teacher, a young Drellian woman, stepped forward. "Mr. Hollis? Follow me. Stay quiet. Stay close." He led them through the maintenance tunnels to a reinforced storage area. "Lock this behind me. Don't open it for anyone except Chief Torrens or Headmaster Brinall, understand?" The teacher nodded, still in shock. "Who are you?" "Someone who used to be good at things I'm not proud of," Ryan said. "Keep them safe." He sealed the door and moved on. The raiders were gathering hostages in the main assembly hall. Ryan reached a security terminal and patched into the station's communication system. His voice echoed through every speaker. "Attention, Kresh personnel. You have breached the Stellar Youth Academy. You are threatening children. You have 30 minutes to take your ships and leave." In the assembly hall, Commander Shreth laughed. The Kresh leader was tall and scarred, with the confident bearing of someone who had done this many times before. Brave words from someone hiding. "Show yourself or we start killing hostages." Ryan did not respond. Instead, he went back to work. 2 more patrols disappeared. Then 3. The raiders started finding bodies and the laughter stopped. "Who is this human?" Shreth demanded over the comms. One of his technical officers was frantically trying to break through Ryan's personnel file encryption. When he finally succeeded, his voice went quiet. "Commander, you need to see this." The file displayed on Shreth's screen: military service, special operations, classified missions, a string of successful hostage rescues and deep infiltration operations. A psychological profile that recommended the subject for high-risk assignments involving protecting non-combatants, and a codename: Badger. Shreth's confident expression cracked. He had heard stories. Soldiers talked and stories spread. Some humans earned reputations that made even hardened criminals nervous. "Consolidate all forces around the hostages," Shreth ordered. "Now." In the darkness of the maintenance tunnels, Ryan checked his wrist display. 43 raiders left. Most were now clustered in the assembly hall with the hostages. He had moved them exactly where he wanted them. Now came the hard part. 217 hostages sat in the assembly hall, surrounded by armed raiders. Children cried softly. Teachers held students close. Parents who had been visiting for conferences clutched their young ones tight. Commander Shreth paced at the front of the room, weapon in hand, trying to project confidence he no longer felt. Half his soldiers were missing. Not dead in a firefight, just gone. Vanished like smoke. Status report. He barked into his comm. Perimeter teams not responding. Engineering section teams not responding. Residential wing teams not responding. Shreth's grip tightened on his weapon. One human. One maintenance worker who turned out to be a ghost from military records. Above them, in the ventilation system, Ryan moved with practiced silence. Through the grates, he could see the entire assembly hall. 40 raiders total. Too many for a frontal assault, even for him. But he was not planning a frontal assault. He pulled up the station's environmental controls on his wrist display. This was going to be delicate. He needed to create chaos without harming the hostages. His fingers moved across the controls. The temperature in the hall began to drop. Not dangerously, but enough to be uncomfortable. Then the lights started flickering. "What's happening?" one of the raiders shouted. "The human is in the systems," another responded. Ryan's voice came through the speakers again, cold and measured. "You now have 15 minutes. I count 43 of you left. I can account for each by name and position." He listed them. Their names, their positions in the room, their armor types, their weapon configurations. Information he should not have, but clearly did. Some of the raiders shifted nervously. Being watched by an invisible enemy was worse than facing one in combat. Shreth grabbed his comm. All remaining perimeter teams fall back to the assembly hall. I want everyone in one place where we can see them. Ryan smiled in the darkness. Predictable. 8 more raiders entered the hall, looking relieved to be with their fellow soldiers. They had been alone in the corridors, listening to the screams of their comrades get cut short, watching their squad members disappear. Commander, we found bodies in Section 9. One reported. Professional kills, precise. This human knows what he's doing. I can see his military record, Shreth snapped. Deploy shaped charges at all entry points. If he comes through any door, we blow it. Ryan watched them plant explosives. Amateur work. They were scared, making mistakes. He could use that, but the hostages were still there. Any aggressive move risked innocent lives. He needed them separated. An idea formed. Risky, but everything about this situation was risky. Ryan accessed the fire suppression system. Not the water sprinklers. Those would cause panic. Instead, he triggered the emergency lighting in specific patterns, simulating a fire alert in the eastern corridor outside the hall. Fire detected, the automated system announced. Some of the raiders looked uncertain. Shreth seemed to sense the trick. It's a diversion. Nobody moves. Ryan had expected that. He switched to Plan B. Through his access to the station's power grid, he began a systematic shutdown. Lights went out section by section, moving toward the assembly hall like approaching darkness. The raiders watched nervously as their safe space seemed to shrink. He's boxing us in, one soldier said. When the lights in the hall dimmed slightly, hostages gasped, children whimpered. Auxiliary power, Shreth ordered. Now generators kicked in, but Ryan was ready. He had already identified which circuits fed the hall. One by one, he began overloading them. Sparks flew from wall panels. Smoke began to seep from electrical conduits. Now the raiders had a real problem. Stay in a room that might actually catch fire, or move the hostages and expose themselves. Shreth made his choice. Move them to the cafeteria. Half the force escorts, half stays to guard our backs. Perfect. Ryan had divided them. As the hostages were herded out, Ryan moved through the access tunnels ahead of them. The cafeteria was a better tactical position for him anyway. More entrances, more hiding spots, better sightlines. 20 raiders escorted the hostages. Ryan let them pass beneath him, counting heads, ensuring all the innocents were accounted for. Once the hostages were in the cafeteria, guarded by nervous soldiers, Ryan went back for the 20 raiders still in the assembly hall. They never knew what hit them. Ryan dropped from the ceiling into the center of their formation. What followed was not a fight. It was an execution of training, muscle memory from years of operations. He moved like water, flowed like shadow, struck like thunder. The raiders had weapons, had training, had numbers. Ryan had purpose, 5 seconds. 7 bodies down, 10 seconds. 14 down, 15 seconds. The rest were running. Ryan let them run. He sealed the doors behind them, trapping them in corridors he controlled. Then he hunted them one by one through his maze. Back in the cafeteria, Shreth heard the screams through the comm system. Report. What's happening? Static. Then silence. Only 20 raiders left now, all packed in the cafeteria with 200 hostages. Shreth's confident invasion had become a desperate last stand. Ryan's voice came through the speakers one more time. 10 minutes. 20 soldiers. Commander Shreth, you're running out of people to hide behind. Shreth's patience broke. He strode into the crowd of hostages and grabbed the smallest one he could find. A tiny Rothian child with gray fur and terrified eyes. Pip. He dragged her to the front of the room and pressed his weapon against her head. Human, I know you can hear me. Show yourself or the child dies. Through the ventilation grate above, Ryan went completely still. Pip's scream echoed through the hall and through the metal passages where Ryan crouched. That sound hit something deep inside him. Something primal. Something he had buried under 3 years of fixing pipes and calibrating systems. The maintenance worker died in that moment. What remained was what Shreth's own intelligence files had warned him about. A man who had earned his call sign because when backed into a corner, when protecting those who could not protect themselves, he became unstoppable. Ryan's eyes went cold. His breathing slowed. His heart rate dropped into combat calm. He spoke one more time and his voice had changed. no longer measured and controlled. Flat, empty of everything except certainty. Put the child down. Shreth laughed. Come out where I can see you, or You misunderstand, Ryan interrupted. That wasn't a request. That was me telling you what you'll do before you die. The lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed the cafeteria. Hostages gasped. Raiders activated weapon lights, beams cutting through the black like desperate fingers searching for threats. Shreth held Pip tighter, his weapon still pressed against her small head. Nice trick, human. But I still have the child. Emergency lighting flickered on, bathing everything in dim red. Long shadows stretched across the walls. Every corner held potential danger. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. The raiders swept their lights across the room, weapons ready, waiting for an attack that did not come. Then the screaming started. A raider on the left side of the room went down, his weapon clattering to the floor. His squad mates spun toward him, but he was already unconscious, dragged halfway into a service duct. Another soldier fired wildly at movement that turned out to be his own shadow. The hostages pressed themselves flat against the floor, teachers covering children with their own bodies. A raider near the kitchen entrance dropped without a sound. Then another. Their weapon lights went dark one by one, shrinking the circle of visibility. Ryan was not fighting them. He was erasing them. He moved through the darkness like he was part of it, using every shadow, every blind spot, every moment of distraction. The raiders were trained, but they were fighting an enemy they could not see, could not predict, could not understand. Fear was Ryan's weapon now. Every disappearing soldier made the survivors more panicked, more likely to make mistakes. Shreth backed toward the center of the room, dragging Pip with him. The remaining raiders formed a tight circle around him, weapons pointing in all directions. Shoot anything that moves, Shreth ordered. Bad decision. In their panic, the raiders started firing at sounds, at shadows, at each other's movements. Hostages screamed. Teachers shouted for calm. Ryan waited. Patience was survival. Rushing was death. When the raiders paused to reload, he struck again. 2 more went down in the confusion. Then 3 more when they turned to investigate. 8 raiders left, clustered around Shreth in a desperate knot of fear and weapons. They stood back to back, trying to cover every angle at once. The light surged back to full brightness. Everyone blinked, eyes adjusting. In that moment of blindness, Ryan appeared. He stood 15 feet from Shreth's group, clearly visible, completely still. His clothes were torn and stained. His hands were empty, raised slightly in a gesture that could have been surrender, but his eyes held no surrender. They held inevitability. Let her go, Ryan said quietly. Shreth laughed, high and brittle.
Finally.
The ghost shows himself. He pressed the weapon harder against Pip's head. The little Rothian child whimpered, tears streaming down her furry face. You walk away now, you live. Ryan continued in that same quiet voice. You hurt that child, you pray I kill you quickly. One of the raiders near Shreth was shaking. He had pulled up Ryan's military file on his wrist display and was reading the mission history. Operation after operation, hostage rescues, deep infiltration. A success rate that should not have been possible, Commander, the raider whispered. We should— Silence! Shreth snapped. To Ryan, you move, she dies. You try anything, she dies. You're 1 human against 8 of us. No, Ryan said. I'm 1 human between you and the door. You're 8 raiders between me and that child. The distinction seemed meaningless until it was not. Ryan moved. Nobody saw exactly what happened. One moment he stood 15 feet away. The next moment the lights flickered again, just for a fraction of a second. When they steadied, Ryan was among them. What followed happened too fast for most eyes to track. Ryan's hand redirected Shreth's weapon as it fired, the shot going wild into the ceiling. His other hand grabbed Pip, pulling her free with impossible gentleness despite the violence surrounding the movement. Shreth stumbled backward, suddenly empty-handed. He reached for another weapon. Ryan's boot caught him in the knee. The crack echoed through the room. Shreth went down hard. The 8 raiders tried to respond. They were too slow, too shocked, too bunched together. Ryan had already passed Pip to a teacher who appeared at his shoulder, seemingly from nowhere, but actually guided there by Ryan's earlier positioning. With the child safe, Ryan became something the raiders had no reference for. He did not fight with rage or hatred. He fought with surgical precision, each movement designed to neutralize threats to the hostages. A raider swung a weapon. Ryan redirected it into another raider's shield. Two soldiers collided. Three more tried to get a clear shot, but Ryan kept the others between himself and their weapons. In 20 seconds, it was over. 8 raiders on the ground, disarmed, several unconscious, the rest writhing in pain from precisely broken joints. Shreth lay where he had fallen, both knees shattered, weapon far out of reach. He stared up at Ryan with something between terror and awe. "What are you?" he gasped. "I'm the maintenance guy," Ryan said flatly. "I keep things fixed. I keep people safe." He turned to the hostages. 200 faces stared back at him. Some showed fear. Most showed relief. A few showed gratitude. Pip broke free from the teacher holding her and ran to Ryan. She grabbed his leg, buried her face in his hip, sobbing. Ryan's hand, still steady despite the violence it had just dealt, gently patted her head. "You're safe now," he said softly. "All of you." The doors burst open. Chief Torrens and his security team rushed in, weapons ready, far too late to help. They stopped, taking in the scene. Raiders scattered across the floor. Hostages unharmed, Ryan standing in the middle of it all with a small child clinging to him. "Hollis," Torrens said slowly. "What? Who?" "The raiders are neutralized. The hostages are safe. You should call medical for the injured," Ryan said. "And you'll want to contact Galactic Authority. This one needs to stand trial." He gestured at Shreth. Other children began approaching Ryan now, then teachers, then parents. They formed a circle around him, not threatening, but seeking the safety his presence represented. Pip refused to let go of his hand. Her small fingers gripped tight as if she feared he might disappear. "It's okay," Ryan told her. "The monsters are gone." Through the cafeteria windows, the crash ships were already fleeing, their remaining crews abandoning the operation. Word had spread through their channels. The human called Badger was active again, and nobody wanted to face the Honey Badger's fury. 3 days after the siege, Meridian 7 Station buzzed with activity that had nothing to do with education. Galactic Authority ships surrounded the station. Investigators filled the corridors, taking statements, reviewing security footage, documenting evidence. Medical teams worked with counselors to help students process what they had experienced. Reporters waited outside the station perimeter, desperate for interviews. Ryan sat in a small medical bay, refusing treatment he did not need. A few bruises, some minor cuts, nothing that mattered. The doctor had given up arguing with him an hour ago. What bothered Ryan was the attention. Everyone wanted to talk to him now. Officials wanted statements. Military intelligence wanted debriefings. The media wanted his story. Other stations wanted to hire him. He wanted to go back to fixing pipes. A knock at the door. Headmaster Brinal entered, looking older than he had 4 days ago. The siege had changed him. Had changed everyone. "May I sit?" Ryan nodded. Brinal settled into a chair with a heavy sigh. "I have been reviewing the security footage, all of it." "What you did..." He paused, searching for words. "I do not know whether to be horrified or grateful." "Be grateful the children are safe. 27 raiders dead. 16 more injured. You fought like someone who had no choice," Ryan interrupted. "They threatened children. There was no other way." Brinal studied him. "Your military record was classified. Very classified. The Galactic Authority had to go through significant channels to access it. They tell me you were one of the best." Ryan said nothing. "They also tell me you left military service 3 years ago after a mission went wrong. Hostages died. You blamed yourself." "Because it was my fault," Ryan said quietly. "I was too slow. They died because I was too slow. So you came here, to a school, to be around children you could protect. To be around children I could keep safe by keeping their systems running," Ryan corrected. "I didn't want to fight again. I wanted to fix things, not break them. Yet when the moment came, you did fight, and you saved everyone." Ryan looked at his hands. They were steady now, but he remembered how they had moved during the siege. Old reflexes, old training, old instincts he had tried to bury. "What happens now?" Ryan asked. "Now the galaxy knows what you did. Your name is spreading across every news network. The human who saved 300 innocents from the Kresh Syndicate. They are calling you a hero." "I'm not a hero." The children disagree. As if summoned by those words, small footsteps approached. Pip appeared in the doorway, clutching her music box. She looked at Brinal, then at Ryan, then ran to climb into Ryan's lap. She had not left his side much since the siege. The counselors said it was normal. She felt safe with him. Several other students were showing the same attachment. "Mr. Ryan," Pip said softly. "Are you leaving?" "No," Ryan said. "I'm staying right here. Promise?" "Promise." That seemed to satisfy her. She settled against his chest, playing with the music box he had repaired. Brinal watched them with a sad smile. "The Galactic Council is convening an emergency session. They want to discuss security at educational facilities across the galaxy. Your actions have started a conversation." "What kind of conversation?" "About whether humans should be hired for protection roles at vulnerable installations. Some species are advocating for it strongly. Others are afraid of what one human can do." Ryan's jaw tightened. One human can do a lot when children are threatened. Any species would do the same, perhaps. But your species seems particularly intense about it. The xenopsychologists are writing papers. The military analysts are studying your tactics. You have become a symbol. I don't want to be a symbol. I want to be the maintenance guy. A commotion outside. Raised voices. Chief Torrens appeared, looking flustered. "Hollis, there are representatives from 6 different stations out there. They all want to hire you. The offers are substantial." Ryan shook his head. "Not interested." "There are also 3 mercenary companies and a private security firm. The money they're offering is not interested." Torrens looked helpless. "Then what do you want?" "I want to go back to work. I have a coolant leak in Section 9 that still needs fixing." The security chief and the headmaster exchanged glances. "Ryan," Brinal said carefully, "after what everyone saw, after what you did, you cannot simply go back to being invisible. Watch me." But even as he said it, Ryan knew it was not true. More students appeared in the doorway. They did not enter, just stood there watching him, wanting to be near him. Teachers nodded to him with new respect. Parents whose children he had saved stopped him to offer tearful thanks. He was not invisible anymore. He could never be invisible again. That night, Ryan accessed his terminal. Messages flooded his inbox. Job offers, interview requests, speaking invitations. He deleted them all. One message caught his attention, from his old military unit. They had heard about the siege. They wanted him back for a special operation. Ryan read it twice. Then he typed a simple response. "I found my mission. I'm right where I need to be." He sent it and closed the terminal. Through his window, he could see children in the recreation area. They were playing, laughing, already bouncing back the way children did. Pip was among them, showing off her music box to friends. She looked up, saw him watching, and waved. Ryan waved back. Headmaster Brinal had offered him a new position. Head of security. Better pay. Real authority. Ryan had refused. But he had agreed to one thing: training the security staff. Teaching them what he knew. Making sure they could protect the students if something like this happened again. Because it would happen again. The galaxy was a dangerous place. But now at least this one station would be ready. Ryan picked up his toolbox. The coolant leak in Section 9 was still waiting. Some things at least could go back to normal. But as he walked through the corridors, students called out greetings. Teachers smiled. Everyone knew who he was now. The quiet maintenance worker who had fought an army to keep them safe. The honey badger who guarded the door. And across the galaxy, in dark corners where criminals gathered, a new warning spread. Avoid human-protected facilities. Especially avoid any place where a human called Badger stands watch. Some lessons were learned in blood. This was one of them. 6 months painted new rhythms across Meridian 7 station. Ryan knelt in front of a malfunctioning air filter in the lower engineering level, hands deep in machinery, doing exactly what he loved. The work was honest. The work was simple. The work let him think about anything except violence. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Small ones. Ryan smiled before even looking up. "Mr. Ryan." Pip appeared with her usual energy, carrying a small bag. "I brought you lunch. You didn't have to do that. But you always forget to eat when you're working." She set the bag down with the seriousness of someone delivering critical supplies. "Teacher Bryn says you need to take care of yourself." The Rothian child had grown braver over the months. The nightmares had faded. The fear in her eyes had been replaced with something Ryan treasured more: trust. Other children appeared behind her. 4 of them today, various species, all students he had saved during the siege. They often found excuses to visit him during their free time. "What are you fixing?" asked a young Drellian boy named Thomas. "Air filtration system. Keeps the air clean so you can breathe properly." "Is it hard?" "Not if you understand how it works." Ryan showed them the mechanism, explaining in simple terms. They watched with fascination. To them, everything he did seemed important now. After they left, Ryan sat alone with the lunch Pip had brought. A sandwich made with care, wrapped in paper that had crayon drawings on it. Pictures of him, of the students, of the station. Always with everyone smiling, his communicator chirped. "Chief Torrance, Hollis, we have a situation in Section 12. Possible security concern." Ryan was moving before Torrance finished speaking. Some habits never faded. He arrived to find Torrance and 3 security officers surrounding a nervous-looking Valkyrie maintenance worker. "What's the problem?" "Found him trying to access restricted systems," Torrance explained. "Says he works here, but his credentials don't match." Ryan studied the worker. Young, scared, hands dirty from actual labor. He checked the work order on the nearby panel. "He's legitimate. New hire from last month. Someone didn't update his clearances." Ryan looked at Torrance. "I'll vouch for him." The security officers relaxed. Over the past months, they had learned to trust Ryan's instincts. He had spent weeks training them, teaching them patterns, showing them how to think like someone planning an attack. Meridian 7 was no longer a soft target. Everyone knew it. Later that day, Ryan stood in what had become his unofficial office, a small room near the security center filled with station schematics and system diagrams. He was reviewing new protocols when Headmaster Brynall entered, still refusing to take the official title. "Still just maintenance," Ryan confirmed. "Maintenance workers don't typically design comprehensive security systems and train tactical response teams." "Then I'm a maintenance worker with hobbies," Brynall chuckled. He had learned to accept Ryan's stubbornness. "I have news. 3 more educational facilities have requested your consultation. They want to implement your security model. Send them the documentation." "They don't need me there. They want the human who saved Meridian 7. They want the reassurance that someone like you is helping protect their students." Ryan sighed. "Fine, I'll do remote consultations. But I'm not leaving this station." "Because of the children?" "Because this is my home." That evening, an unexpected ship requested docking permission. Refugee vessel, systems damaged, requesting emergency assistance. The kind of situation that once would have sent the entire station into panic. Now security teams moved with practiced efficiency. Ryan coordinated from the security center, watching displays, monitoring patterns, ready but calm. The refugees were genuine. Families fleeing conflict, including children. The station granted asylum and began processing arrivals. Among the refugees was a creche family. When some staff members hesitated, remembering the siege, Ryan personally ensured they received the same care as everyone else. "A child is a child," he told the staff. "We protect all of them." The creche parents recognized his name. They had heard stories. They chose this station specifically because of those stories. Not because they feared him, but because they knew he would protect their children too. That night, Ryan found himself on the observation deck where he had stood so many times before. The stars looked the same. The station hummed with the same peaceful energy. But everything had changed. Pip found him there. She could not sleep, wanted to find him. He let her sit beside him, small and quiet, watching the stars together. "Mr. Ryan, do bad people ever come back?" "Sometimes. But if they do, we'll be ready. Because you'll protect us. Because everyone here will protect everyone." "I just taught them how." She accepted this content. "I want to be like you when I grow up." "You want to fix air filters?" "I want to keep people safe." Ryan felt something warm in his chest. Pride maybe, or hope. "Then learn, study, be strong but be kind. That's more important than anything I can do." She nodded seriously, filing away his words like precious treasures. Days turned to weeks. Weeks turned to months. Ryan's routine became sacred. Fix what was broken. Train who needed training. Protect who needed protecting. He never gave interviews. Never accepted awards. Never sought recognition, but his impact rippled outward anyway. Other humans in security roles across the galaxy found new respect for their work. Some veterans, like Ryan, sought positions protecting the vulnerable. A quiet movement grew, warriors becoming guardians. The creche syndicate collapsed after the Meridian 7 failure. Their reputation never recovered. Other criminal organizations learned the lesson. Some targets cost more than they were worth. Educational facilities became safer, not because of weapons or walls, but because people like Ryan taught others to think like protectors. And on Meridian 7, life continued. Students learned, teachers taught, children played without fear. Ryan walked through corridors that had once seen violence, now filled with laughter again. He fixed systems that kept people comfortable. He trained guards who would never need to fight but were ready if they did. Sometimes, late at night, he still had nightmares about the siege. About the moment he heard Pip scream. About the choice to become violent again to prevent violence. But then morning came. Children's voices filled the halls. Pip would find him with crayon drawings or forgotten lunches. Students would ask questions about how things worked. Teachers would thank him for keeping their classroom climate control running. These were the moments that mattered. Not the fighting, not the fear. The simple, precious moments of peace he had fought to preserve. Ryan stood in the lower engineering bay, wrench in hand, fixing a coolant pipe that nobody else wanted to deal with. His coveralls were stained with grease and his hair stuck to his forehead from the heat. This was exactly what he wanted. Boring, quiet, safe. Above him, through the metal grating, he could hear children laughing. That sound was worth everything. The quiet maintenance worker had become a legend. But legends did not interest him. He was content being what he had always been, someone who fixed broken things and protected good people. And if monsters came again, they would learn the same lesson the creche had learned. The honey badger was always watching, always ready, always there, but mostly he was just Ryan, the maintenance guy who kept the lights on, the air flowing, and the children safe. That was enough. That was everything.
Ruby's fingers traced the scars on Badger's neck while the shuttle climbed through Earth's atmosphere. The honey badger made a low chirping sound and pressed closer to her lap. Outside the viewport, blue sky faded into the black canvas of space. Director Williams sat across from them, reviewing diplomatic files on his datapad. "You don't have to come with us," Williams said softly. "The medical team said you could stay at the facility for another month." Ruby didn't respond. She hadn't spoken since the Ravager attack destroyed her colony 6 months ago. Badger was the only reason she survived those 3 days buried in the rubble, while rescue teams searched through the debris. This small creature had kept her warm and brought her scraps of food. The bond between them was unbreakable. The shuttle docked with the Sovereign Dawn, a massive flagship belonging to the Galactic Coalition. Ruby felt the artificial gravity engage as the airlock cycled. Williams stood and adjusted his formal jacket. 3 other human diplomats gathered their materials. Everyone looked nervous. "Remember, stay close and let me do the talking," Williams instructed. "The Vorians value strength above everything else. They're testing us." The airlock opened. Ruby stepped into a corridor that stretched impossibly far in both directions. Alien crew members stopped to stare at the human delegation. Most had never seen Earth species before. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to barely hidden contempt. A tall figure approached, his scaled skin reflecting the corridor lights in shades of deep purple. Commander Thalrek of the Vorian Empire stood over 7 feet tall, his muscular frame covered in ceremonial armor. 4 junior officers flanked him, each equally imposing. Director Williams. Thalrek's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Earth sends its representatives at last. We wondered if your species possessed the courage to meet us face to face." Williams extended his hand. "Commander, thank you for receiving us." Thalrek ignored the gesture. His eyes swept over the human group and stopped on Ruby. "You bring children to diplomatic functions? And what is that creature?" Badger sat at Ruby's feet, watching the aliens with dark, intelligent eyes. His stocky body and short legs made him look almost comical next to the towering Vorians. "This is Ruby Chun and her companion, Badger," Williams explained. "The girl has special circumstances. The animal provides emotional support after traumatic events." Thalrek threw his head back and laughed. The sound echoed through the corridor, causing other aliens to pause and look. His officers joined in, their collective amusement drawing more spectators. Emotional support. Thalrek bent down to examine Badger more closely. Look at this thing. Those tiny legs can barely hold up its body. What purpose does such a useless creature serve? We Vorians abandoned keeping pets 10,000 years ago. They weakened us, made us soft. Badger's eyes never left the commander's face. The honey badger showed no fear, despite being surrounded by creatures that could crush him without effort. I would not underestimate Earth creatures, Commander, Williams said carefully. Appearances can be deceiving. Can they? Thalrek straightened to his full height. Your planet sends weaklings and children while the Ravager swarms consume world after world. The Coalition needs warriors, not sentiment and softness. One of the Vorian officers stepped forward. Commander, perhaps we should proceed to the conference chamber. No. Thalrek's eyes gleamed with challenge. I think Earth needs to prove itself first. We have tests for species seeking Coalition membership. Tests that separate the worthy from the weak. Williams tensed. What kind of tests? Combat-triade. Strategy assessments. Survival scenarios. Thalrek gestured toward Badger. But perhaps we start with something simpler. Let us see what your emotional support animal can do against a real predator. Absolutely not, Williams said firmly. That wasn't part of the agreement. Then Earth fails the first test by refusing. Thalrek crossed his arms. Return to your planet and tell them the Coalition has no room for cowards who hide behind pets and children. Ruby felt something shift inside her chest. She looked down at Badger, remembering how he fought off the scavenger drones in the colony ruins. How he stood between her and danger without hesitation. How his fearlessness kept her alive when everything else fell apart. She stepped forward and placed her hand on Williams's arm. The director looked at her in surprise. Ruby met his eyes and nodded once, then pointed at Badger. Ruby, no, Williams whispered. We can find another way. But Ruby had already made her decision. She knelt beside Badger and stroked his coarse fur. The honey badger chirped softly and licked her hand. Then he waddled toward Thalrek, stopping a few feet away. The commander smiled with predatory satisfaction. The child has more spine than I expected. Very well. We will arrange a demonstration in the training arena. Your creature against one of our warhounds. A simple test of natural ability. This is wrong, Williams protested. The animal could be killed. Then Earth learns a valuable lesson about its place in the galaxy. Thalrek turned and walked away, his officers following. 1 hour. Do not be late. The corridor emptied as aliens hurried to spread news of the upcoming spectacle. Williams ran his hand through his hair, stress evident on his face. The other diplomats gathered around Ruby, speaking in worried tones. Ruby ignored them all. She picked up Badger and held him close, feeling his steady heartbeat against her chest. The honey badger had saved her life once. Now everyone would see what she already knew. Size and appearance meant nothing. Heart and courage were everything. She just wished she could tell them that with words instead of silence. The training arena occupied an entire deck of the Sovereign Dawn. Ruby pressed her face against the observation window, watching technicians activate the environmental systems below. Holographic landscapes flickered into existence, creating rocky terrain, shallow pools, and dense vegetation patches. The arena could simulate any planetary environment in a known galaxy. Hundreds of aliens filled the observation decks. Word had spread quickly through the ship. Ruby heard their conversations through the translation devices Williams had given the human delegation. Most spoke about the upcoming match with amusement. Some placed bets on how quickly the honey badger would flee. Others wondered if Earth creatures could even feel fear properly. This is madness, Williams muttered beside her. He had spent the last hour trying to contact Earth Command for guidance, but the communication delay made real-time decisions impossible. We should withdraw from the trials entirely. Ruby shook her head. She held Badger in her arms, feeling his muscles shift beneath his fur. The honey badger seemed calm, almost relaxed. He had been in worse situations before Thalrek entered the observation deck, surrounded by his officers. The crowd parted for him automatically, showing the respect his rank commanded. He approached the humans with a satisfied expression. "Your creature is prepared?" he asked. "This proves nothing about humanity," Williams said. "An animal's behavior doesn't represent our species. On the contrary, Director, your species chooses to bond with creatures like this. You bring them to important diplomatic meetings. You claim they provide value." Thalrek gestured toward the arena. "We simply wish to see what that value is." A door opened at the far end of the arena floor. Ruby's breath caught as the Vorian warhound emerged. The creature stood nearly 6 feet tall at the shoulder, its body covered in thick armored plates that had been bred into its genetics over countless generations. Curved claws scraped against the arena floor. Its eyes glowed with predatory intelligence. The crowd murmured with approval. Several aliens shouted encouragement in their native languages. The warhound had never lost a match against creatures twice its size. "Beautiful, is it not?" Thalrek said proudly. "We spent millennia perfecting the warhound breed. Strength, speed, killing instinct, all maximized through careful selection. That is how superior species approach animal relationships. We create tools, not companions." Ruby felt Badger tense in her arms. The honey badger's eyes locked onto the warhound below. She carried him to the transport tube that would take them to the arena floor. Williams grabbed her shoulder. "Ruby, please, let me stop this." She looked at him with steady eyes and shook her head. Then she stepped into the tube before he could protest further. The descent took only seconds. Ruby emerged onto the arena floor, feeling the artificial sun warm her skin. The holographic environment smelled like real earth and vegetation. Badger squirmed in her arms, eager to be released. She set him down carefully. The honey badger immediately began sniffing the ground, analyzing his surroundings with methodical precision. He showed no reaction to the warhound watching from across the arena. Ruby walked back to the exit point. A force field activated, separating her from the combat zone. Through the transparent barrier, she could see Williams and the other humans pressed against the observation window high above. Their faces showed obvious fear. The warhound paced along the far side of the arena, awaiting its handler's command. Muscles rippled beneath its armored hide. Saliva dripped from its jaws. Thalrek's voice boomed through the arena speakers. "Let the demonstration begin." The warhound charged immediately. Its powerful legs covered the distance in seconds, claws tearing up the simulated ground. The crowd roared with excitement. Ruby's hands pressed against the force field. Badger didn't run. He didn't even flinch. Instead, he dropped into a low stance and watched the approaching predator with calculating eyes. At the last possible moment, he darted sideways with surprising speed. The warhound's claws whistled through empty air where Badger had been standing. The crowd's roar faltered into confused murmurs. The warhound spun around, snarling with frustration. It lunged again, jaws wide enough to swallow the honey badger whole. Badger rolled beneath the attack and twisted his body upward. His claws found the soft tissue around the warhound's eyes. The larger creature howled and jerked backward. Ruby felt her heart pounding. She had seen Badger fight before, during the colony attack. She knew what he was capable of. But watching him face something so much larger still made her chest tight with worry. The warhound became more cautious, circling its opponent with renewed respect. Blood dripped from shallow cuts near its eyes. It had never encountered prey that fought back so effectively. Badger advanced. His short legs moved with purpose, closing the distance despite the warhound's attempts to maintain space. When the larger creature snapped at him, Badger went for its throat. His teeth sank into the unarmored area beneath the warhound's jaw. The warhound shrieked and tried to shake Badger loose, but the honey badger held on with incredible grip strength. His body swung wildly as the warhound thrashed, but he didn't let go. Seconds stretched into what felt like minutes. Finally, the warhound dropped to the ground and rolled, trying to crush Badger beneath its weight. The honey badger released his grip and scrambled clear. Both animals separated, breathing hard. The arena had gone completely silent. Thalrek stood at the observation window, his expression frozen in disbelief. Around him, aliens stared at the scene below without making sound. The warhound, pride of Vorian breeding programs, backed away from a creature 1/10 its size. Badger advanced again, showing no signs of fatigue or fear. The warhound retreated further, whimpering. Ruby smiled for the first time in 6 months. Thalrek slammed his fist against the control panel, stopping the match. The force field around the warhound activated, separating it from Badger. Medical teams rushed onto the arena floor to examine the injured animal. The creature lay on its side, breathing rapidly, eyes wide with confusion and fear. Ruby stepped through her force field the moment it deactivated. Badger trotted over to her, his gait slightly uneven, but his head held high. She scooped him up and checked him for injuries. A few scratches mark his thick hide, but nothing serious. The honey badger licked her face and made a satisfied chirping sound. The observation decks erupted into chaos. Aliens argued in dozens of languages, their translation devices creating a cacophony of overlapping voices. Some demanded replays of the match. Others insisted it had been rigged somehow. A few spoke in hushed, respectful tones about what they had witnessed. Williams appeared through the transport tube, running to Ruby's side. "Are you both all right?" Ruby nodded. She buried her face in Badger's fur, feeling the adrenaline slowly drain from her system. The honey badger's heartbeat had already returned to normal, as if fighting creatures many times his size was just another routine activity. Impossible! Thalrek's voice cut through the arena speakers. He had descended to the floor level, his purple scales darker with agitation. That creature should have fled. Every instinct should have told it to run from a superior predator. Honey badgers don't have that instinct, Williams said quietly. On Earth, they're known for fighting animals 50 times their size. Lions, hyenas, Cape buffalo. They don't know how to quit. Then they are defective, Thalrek snapped. Evolution should have eliminated such foolish behavior. And yet they survive. Williams gestured to Badger, who sat calmly in Ruby's arms. They thrive in environments that would kill most species. Their fearlessness isn't stupidity, Commander. It's strategy. Thalrek approached Ruby slowly. The girl met his eyes without flinching. Badger watched the commander with the same calculating gaze he had used against the warhound. "This proves nothing about humans themselves," Thalrek said, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "The animal fought well. I acknowledge that. But Earth seeks membership in the coalition. We need to know if your species can contribute to our defense. What more do you want from us?" Williams asked. "Real warriors, real weapons, real strategy." Thalrek turned to face the observation decks where his officers waited. The Ravager swarms destroy everything they touch. They have consumed 17 worlds in the past year alone. We need species that can fight, not species that bond with small creatures and hope for the best. Before Williams could respond, alarms shrieked throughout the ship. Red emergency lights bathed the arena in crimson glow. The calm artificial environment flickered and vanished, replaced by bare metal walls and floor. Thalrek's communication device crackled. "Commander, we have a situation. Sensors detected a Ravager scout ship at the system's edge. It's heading toward us." The color drained from several aliens' faces in the observation decks. Ruby felt Williams's hand on her shoulder, protective and tense. She had seen Ravagers before during the colony attack. The memory made her grip Badger tighter. "Battle stations," Thalrek ordered. "All combat personnel to their positions. Diplomatic guests will be escorted to secure quarters immediately." "Let us help," Williams said. "Earth has experience fighting Ravagers." "You," Thalrek laughed, but it sounded forced. "What could humans possibly offer? Your planet hasn't even developed proper deflector shield technology. Return to your quarters and let real warriors handle this threat." 2 Vorian guards approached the human delegation. Williams started to argue, but more alarms cut him off. The ship's artificial gravity fluctuated slightly as power redirected to defensive systems. Ruby refused to move when the guards reached for her. She stood her ground, holding Badger close. The honey badger's eyes remained fixed on Thalrek, unafraid and unwavering. "The child needs to come with us," One guard said in surprisingly gentle tones. This area is not safe. Williams tried to take Ruby's hand, but she pulled away. She wanted to stay. She wanted to see what would happen. The Ravagers had taken everything from her once before. She wasn't going to hide again. Ruby, please, Williams pleaded. We have to go. The ship shuddered. Something had struck the outer hull. More alarms joined the first, creating a symphony of warnings. Aliens ran through the corridors visible beyond the arena entrance, rushing to combat stations or emergency shelters. Thalrek watched the chaos with a grim expression. His confidence from earlier had vanished, replaced by the hard reality of facing an enemy that had destroyed civilizations. He looked at Ruby and Badger one more time. Get them to safety, he told his guards. If the Ravagers breach the hull, sealed quarters will buy them a few extra minutes. Just a few minutes? Williams asked. The Ravagers adapt quickly. They learn our weapon patterns, our defense strategies. Each encounter teaches them how to defeat us more efficiently. Thalrek's hands clenched into fists. We lose more ships every month. More colonies. More worlds. The Coalition is running out of options. Ruby felt something stir in her chest. The same feeling she had when Badger stood between her and danger in the colony ruins. The same feeling she had when she decided to let him fight the Warhound. It was the feeling of knowing something important, something the adults around her couldn't see. She opened her mouth. No sound came out first. The selective mutism that had held her silent for 6 months felt like a physical barrier in her throat. But she pushed against it, driven by desperate need to share what she understood. The guards reached for her arms. Williams moved to pick her up. Thalrek turned to leave the arena. Ruby forced the words out, quiet but clear in the chaos. Badger protects me. Everyone stopped moving. Williams stared at Ruby with wide eyes. The guards froze mid-reach. Even Thalrek turned back, his expression shifting from surprise to something more complex. Ruby, Williams whispered. You spoke. Ruby nodded, her voice growing steadier. Badger protects me. He always has. The words felt strange in her mouth after so many months of silence. But they also felt right, like something that needed to be said at this exact moment. She hugged the honey badger closer, drawing strength from his solid presence. Thalrek approached slowly. The child hasn't spoken before, not since the Ravager attack on her colony. Williams knelt beside Ruby, his eyes glistening. We thought it might take years of therapy. Ruby, what made you? He protects me, Ruby repeated, looking down at Badger. When the buildings fell, when the fires came, when those machines killed everyone, he stayed with me. He brought me food. He kept me warm. He fought the scavenger drones that tried to hurt me. The ship shuddered again, harder this time. Distant explosions echoed through the metal corridors. But nobody in the arena moved. Ruby's words had created a pocket of stillness in the chaos. For 3 days, Ruby continued, her voice soft but unwavering. I was buried under rocks and metal. I couldn't move my legs. I thought I would die there. But Badger dug through the rubble. He found gaps I couldn't see. He led the rescue team to me. Thalrek's face went very still. The rescue team, they followed his sounds, Williams explained quietly. The honey badger kept making noise, leading them through the collapsed structures. Without him, they never would have found Ruby in time. We thought it was luck, but it wasn't luck. Ruby stroked Badger's head. He knew what he was doing. He's small, but he's smart. And he never gives up. A massive impact shook the entire ship. The lights flickered. Emergency power engaged, bathing everything in harsh white illumination. Thalrek's communication device erupted with urgent messages. Commander, the Ravager ship is launching attack drones. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They're swarming our defensive perimeter. Deploy all fighters, Thalrek ordered. Activate point defense systems. Target the largest clusters first. Sir, the drones are adapting to our weapons. They're learning our firing patterns and adjusting their approach vectors. Estimated time until hull breach is 12 minutes. Thalrek's jaw tightened. He looked at Ruby and Badger, then at Williams. Your species faced these machines? 6 colonies destroyed before we learned how to fight them, Williams said. Thousands dead. Ruby was one of the lucky ones. How did you fight them? What weapons worked? Not weapons, Commander. Tactics. Williams pulled out his data pad, despite the shaking ship. Earth doesn't have your shield technology or your energy weapons. We had to think differently. The ship's main view screen activated on the arena wall, showing the battle outside. Ravager drones swarmed like metallic insects, each one the size of a small vehicle. They moved in coordinated patterns, flowing around the Sovereign Dawn's defensive fire. Vorian fighters engaged them, but struggled to land effective hits. "They're too fast," Thalrek muttered. "Our weapons are designed for ship-to-ship combat, not these small targets." "That's because you're thinking like predators," Williams said, tapping his data pad rapidly. "You want to overpower them with superior force. But sometimes the best defense is not about being stronger." "Then what is it about?" Ruby spoke again, surprising herself. "Being harder to kill." Everyone looked at her. She pointed at Badger. "He doesn't win fights by being big or strong. He wins because he won't stop, because he goes for weak spots, because he's too tough to hurt easily." Williams nodded, understanding dawning on his face. "Ruby's right. Commander, I need to contact Earth immediately. We have defensive technology that might help. Your planet is light hours away. There's no time. Not Earth itself. The human research station on Titan. They've been working on autonomous defense systems specifically designed to counter Ravager tactics." Williams was already sending the message. "Give them access to your communication array and weapons control." "You want me to give humans control of Vorian weapons?" Thalrek looked incredulous. Another explosion rocked the ship. The view screen showed 3 Ravager drones breaking through the defensive perimeter, heading straight for the hull. 7 minutes until breach. A voice reported over communications that Thalrek made a decision. "Do it. Give them access." Williams worked frantically on his datapad. Ruby watched the view screen, still holding Badger. The honey badger remained calm despite the chaos, his eyes tracking the Ravager movements with interest. "Connection established," Williams announced. "Titan Station is uploading their defense protocols now." "What exactly are these protocols?" Thalrek demanded. "Drone swarms, but not like yours." Williams pulled up a schematic on his pad. "We studied Earth animals and adapted their survival behaviors into artificial intelligence patterns. Each drone type mimics a different species." The view screen changed. New signatures appeared around the Sovereign Dawn, small craft launching from hidden bays. They moved in patterns unlike anything the Vorians used, coordinated but fluid, aggressive but intelligent. "Those drones," Ruby said, pointing. "They move like Badger." William smiled. "Some of them do. We call that pattern Honey Badger Protocol. Relentless, fearless, targeting weak points with precision. But we have others too. Wolf Pack Protocol for coordinated strikes. Eagle Protocol for diving attacks. Mongoose Protocol for evasion and counter-strikes." Thalrek watched the screen with growing amazement. The human drones engaged the Ravager swarm, and the battle immediately shifted. Where Vorian fighters had struggled, these smaller craft adapted and overwhelmed. They didn't try to match the Ravager's strength. They used speed, cunning, and coordination. "It's working," someone breathed over the communications. Ruby squeezed Badger gently. She finally understood what the adults had missed. Strength wasn't about size or power. It was about refusing to give up, no matter how big the enemy looked. The arena view screen split into multiple feeds, showing the battle from different angles. Ruby watched with fascination as human drones swarmed the Ravager machines. They moved nothing like the rigid formations she had seen Vorian fighters use. These craft darted and weaved, never staying in one place, never presenting an easy target. A cluster of Ravager drones tried to overwhelm a section of the hull. Before they could attach their cutting tools, human drones using the Honey Badger Protocol dove straight at them. The impact scattered the Ravagers, breaking their coordination. Then the human craft targeted the joints and sensor clusters on each machine, disabling them with precise strikes. "They're not trying to destroy the Ravagers outright," Thalrek observed. "They're crippling them." "Exactly," Williams said. "We learned that from honey badgers. They don't waste energy killing prey. They immobilize it by targeting vulnerable areas. Efficient and effective. More Ravager drones attempted a coordinated assault from multiple vectors. This time, human drones running Wolfpack protocol responded. They split into groups of 5, each pack working in perfect synchronization. One group herded Ravagers toward another group's ambush position. When the enemy machines tried to scatter, a third pack cut off their escape routes. Incredible, one of Thalrek's officers whispered. The coordination is flawless. Wolves hunt as a family unit, Ruby said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. She felt shy with all the attention, but continued. I saw a documentary once. They don't just chase prey. They communicate, plan, work together. Each wolf has a role. The girl is correct, Williams confirmed. We programmed pack hierarchy into the AI. Each group has an alpha drone making tactical decisions, but all members contribute. It's not one intelligence controlling everything. It's many intelligences cooperating. The Ravager Scout ship changed tactics. It launched a new wave of drones, these ones larger and more heavily armored. They pushed through the human defenses with brutal momentum, destroying several drones in the process that Ruby's breath caught. For a moment, she thought the Ravagers would break through. But then new human signatures appeared on the screen, moving incredibly fast. Eagle protocol engaging, Williams announced. The new drones approached from above the battle plane, building tremendous velocity before diving at the armored Ravagers. They struck like thunderbolts, hitting with enough force to crack the heavy plating. Then they pulled up and circled around for another pass. They're using gravity and speed instead of raw firepower, Thalrek said with dawning respect, converting momentum into weapon force. Eagles are one of Earth's most effective predators, Williams explained. They don't fight their prey on equal terms. They use altitude advantage and physics to multiply their striking power. Badger chirped in Ruby's arms. She looked down at him and smiled. The honey badger seemed proud, as if he understood that his species had inspired part of Earth's defense strategy. The Ravager Scout ship made a desperate move. It launched every remaining drone at once, creating a massive swarm that darkened space around the Sovereign Dawn. Hundreds of machines rushed toward the flagship from all directions. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. Vorian crew members braced for impact. Thalrek's expression hardened, preparing for the worst. Mongoose protocol now, Williams said calmly into his communicator. The human drones scattered, moving in seemingly random patterns. The Ravager swarm tried to follow, but couldn't lock onto any single target. Each time the enemy machines committed to pursuing one drone, it would jinx sideways at the last possible second, causing Ravagers to collide with each other. What are they doing? Thalrek demanded. Mongooses are immune to many snake venoms, Ruby said, surprising herself with her knowledge. But they don't just resist poison. They're also really good at dodging. They make snakes miss on purpose, tire them out, then attack when the snake is exhausted. The human drones continued their evasive dance, leading Ravager machines into each other, causing them to waste energy on failed attacks. The enemy swarm's coordination broke down as individual machines became confused and damaged from friendly collisions. Then the human drones stopped running. They turned as one and counterattacked, hitting the disorganized Ravagers from every angle simultaneously. The battle became a massacre, with crippled enemy machines drifting helplessly through space. The Ravager Scout ship tried to retreat, but Vorian fighters had regrouped. They pursued the fleeing vessel with renewed confidence, their weapons finally finding easy targets now that the drone screen had collapsed. Direct hit on the Scout ship's engine core, someone reported. It's disabled. The arena erupted in cheers. Aliens who had been preparing for death moments ago now celebrated survival. Vorian officers embraced each other. Even the normally stoic guards at the arena entrance smiled with relief. Thalrek stood motionless, staring at the view screen. The human drones maintained formation around the Sovereign Dawn, ready for any additional threats. But the battle was over. A Ravager attack had been repelled with minimal casualties. How many ships did you lose? He asked Williams quietly. 14 drones damaged, 6 destroyed, all unmanned. Williams put away his datapad. We designed them to be expendable. Better to lose machines than lives. We lost 3 fighters and their pilots. Thalrek's voice was heavy. Brave warriors who died following tactics that no longer work against this enemy. Ruby walked over to the commander, still carrying Badger. The honey badger watched Thalrek with curious eyes. The massive alien warrior looked down at the small girl and her even smaller companion. "I mocked you," Thalrek said. "I called your bond with this creature weakness. I was wrong." "It's okay," Ruby said softly. "A lot of people think Badger is useless because he's small. They don't understand that size doesn't matter. What matters is never giving up." Thalrek knelt down to Ruby's level. For the first time since the humans had arrived, he looked at them with something other than contempt or challenge. He looked at them with respect. "Will you teach us?" he asked. "Will Earth show the Coalition how to fight like you do?" 3 weeks passed before Ruby stood in the arena again. This time, she wasn't alone. Dozens of alien cadets filled the training space, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes across the floor. Badger sat at her feet, watching the proceedings with patient interest. Thalrek addressed the gathered crowd. "Today begins a new phase of Coalition defense training. We are privileged to have Director Williams and his team here to share Earth's tactical innovations." The commander's tone had changed completely. Gone was the mockery and superiority. He spoke about humans with the same respect he showed his own warriors. The shift affected everyone on the Sovereign Dawn. Where aliens once dismissed the human delegation, they now sought their advice. Williams stood beside a holographic display. "We're not here to replace your existing strategies. We're here to add new tools to your arsenal. Tools inspired by Earth's most successful survivors." The display showed various Earth animals in their natural habitats. Lions hunting in coordinated prides. Dolphins using bubble nets to trap fish. Ants building living bridges with their own bodies. Each creature demonstrated a different approach to challenges. "Every species on Earth learned to survive through adaptation," Williams continued. "Not through being the strongest or largest, but through finding strategies that worked for their specific circumstances. That's what we want to teach you." A Kelrathi officer raised a tentacled appendage. "How do we know these animal behaviors will work against Ravagers? They're machines, not living prey." Ruby spoke up before Williams could answer. "Machines follow patterns. Animals do too, but they also know when to break patterns. That's what makes them hard to predict." The officers looked at her with interest. Over the past weeks, Ruby had become something of a minor celebrity on the ship. The silent child who found her voice during a Ravager attack. The girl whose bond with a small Earth creature had changed how aliens viewed humanity. "Ruby is right," Williams said. "Ravagers adapt by learning patterns. Our defense systems don't rely on fixed responses. They use multiple strategies and switch between them unpredictably. Watch." The holographic display showed a simulation. Ravager drones attacked a defended position. Human drones responded with Honey Badger protocol, engaging aggressively. The Ravagers began to adapt, predicting the attack patterns. Then the human drones suddenly switched to Mongoose protocol, becoming evasive. The Ravagers couldn't adjust fast enough, having committed to countering the aggressive approach. "The key is flexibility," Williams explained. "Don't be predictable. Use every tool available. Think like survivors, not conquerors." Thalrek stepped forward. "Earth's approach requires us to change how we view strength. We Vorians prided ourselves on pure combat power. We bred warhounds to be the perfect weapons. But we forgot that perfect weapons become rigid tools." He gestured toward Badger. "This creature weighs perhaps 15 pounds. My warhound weighs 300. Yet the honey badger won their encounter because it didn't fight the way the warhound expected. It refused to follow the rules of engagement." Badger chirped, as if acknowledging the compliment. Several aliens made amused sounds. The honey badger had become popular on the ship. Crew members brought him treats. Children asked Ruby to tell stories about his adventures. Even the Vorian warhound, now recovered from its injuries, had developed a cautious respect for the small creature. Over the next month, we will integrate Earth's defensive protocols into all coalition fleets, Thalrek announced. Every species will contribute its own innovations. We're stronger together than separately. The training session lasted several hours. Williams and his team taught alien cadets how to think like pack hunters, how to use environmental advantages, how to identify weak points in enemy formations. Ruby helped by sharing stories about different Earth animals, making the lessons memorable. When the session ended, Thalrek approached Ruby privately. I wanted to apologize again. When you first arrived, I saw only weakness. I didn't understand what strength truly means. You were trying to protect everyone, Ruby said. You thought being tough meant not caring about small things. But Badger taught me that tough and caring can be the same thing. How so? Ruby scratched behind Badger's ears. He's the toughest animal I know. He fights lions and doesn't care about getting hurt. But he also stayed with me when I was scared. He brought me food when I was hungry. He kept me warm when I was cold. Being tough means you can help people when they need it most. Thalrek was quiet for a moment. You're very wise for someone so young. I had a good teacher. Ruby smiled down at Badger. The honey badger looked up at her and made his chirping sound. Ruby could swear he was smiling too, though honey badgers didn't really smile in ways humans could recognize. Williams joined them, carrying a data pad. I just received confirmation from Earth Command. They've approved full coalition membership. They're sending technical teams to help implement the defense protocols across all fleet groups. This is excellent news, Thalrek said. He extended his hand to Williams. This time, the director shook it firmly. Earth has earned its place among us, not through weapons or technology alone, but through wisdom. Ruby watched the two leaders, feeling pride swell in her chest. 6 months ago, she had lost everything. Her family, her home, her voice. The Ravagers had taken it all. But somehow, through the darkness, she had found something new. Purpose, strength, hope. Badger had saved her life in the colony ruins. Now, in a strange way, he had helped save the galaxy. Not by being big or powerful, but by being exactly what he was. Fearless, determined, and loyal. That night, Ruby stood at the observation window in her quarters, looking at the stars. Earth hung in the distance, a blue marble in the void. Somewhere down there, people were going about their lives, unaware that a girl and her honey badger had changed humanity's place in the cosmos. Badger curled up beside her, his small body warm against her leg. She picked him up and held him close. "Thank you," she whispered into his fur, "for never giving up on me." The honey badger chirped softly, already half asleep. Outside, human drones patrolled alongside Vorian fighters. Eagle patterns mixed with wolf pack tactics. Mongoose evasion combined with honey badger aggression. A new era had begun. Ruby finally understood what her parents had tried to teach her before they died. Strength wasn't about being unbreakable. It was about breaking and coming back stronger. It was about finding help in unexpected places. It was about bonds that couldn't be measured or weighed. She looked at her reflection in the window, a girl with her companion, and saw something she hadn't seen in months. She saw a survivor who had found her voice again.